From the heartland of America, focused on God, family, and country, the mouthpiece of the Midwest. This is Dale Carter's America.
Welcome back for another episode of our podcast from the palatial studios here in Raytown, Missouri that are undergoing all kinds of change. I walked in and there's like a scaffolding in the entryway.
Yeah.
Very impressed.
Yeah, we're finishing up some things. So
yeah, looks good.
My stepbrother's here. He's helping out, so we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Shout out Steve.
I'm wearing the closest thing that I have, if you're watching this on the video, the closest thing I have to Beach Boys attire. It's a blue button-down shirt with sharks on it, you know, because of Brian Wilson. And does that hit your generation at all?
Beach Boys are one of my favorite bands.
Okay, all right.
Of all time.
So they transcend.
Is there news with them?
Well, Brian Wilson died.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was 82. Yeah, I was wondering about that because I know that it transcends down to my generation. I just didn't know if it went deeper than that. But and you're a musician.
Typically, I mean, they're pretty popular in like music circles, I guess, but you know, your average 20, 30 somethings, I don't think is listening to the Beach Boys all the time, but
okay.
I love them. I mean, they're great. One of my favorites.
Good information there. So there are many ways that you can consume the podcast. You can get audio only, you can get video, and Kurt's here to explain all of that to you.
I am. Yes. Welcome everybody back to the podcast. You can watch on YouTube or Rumble for the video. Make sure you're subscribed. Drop a like, drop a comment, share it with your friends. And you can find the audio only podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get those. Make sure to follow us on Facebook to join in the conversation. It's always entertaining. And Dale likes to post his opinions there, so he doesn't have to do it on his personal page.
Exactly. I'm not allowed to do it on my personal page anymore. And we're going to get to that here in just a second. Also, please stop by our sponsors here. At least give them a shot at your business, because every sponsor that you're going to hear on this podcast, they're here for one reason, because they agree with what we're doing here. And they know that we're not, the total in the bag MAGA. We're trying to find the common sense way forward. A lot of that's coming from Donald Trump, but sometimes we disagree. So, that's fine. We're finding that middle ground, that common ground. And these folks are right there with us, including Bob Watson, who was the first to step up and say he wanted to be part of this. And he's a State Farm agent. State Farm is the brand that you know. So if you're ready to get a rate quote, please give Bob Watson at least a shot at your business at 816-229-7878. You can bundle your home and car insurance and save even more. Auto, home, life, whatever you're insuring, State Farm is a name that you know. And insurance is awesome until you need it, right? And then you find out which companies are there to back you. And State Farm is one of the best in the country. And Bob Watson has been a State Farm agent for 51 years. He's my State Farm agent, and that's why I'm asking him to be your State Farm agent. You make the call on that. So the news cycle is spinning so fast. You may recall when we were here a week ago, the meltdown was happening on X between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, right?
Yep.
And one of our favorite keyboard warriors, when I got home, he's like, "Oh, I'll bet you're not going to talk about that on the podcast." I'm like, well, my God, it happened while we were recording the podcast.
Yeah.
Give us a second here and we'll analyze it, and I'm sure it'll still be a big story next week. Guess what? It's not a big story this week.
I know, yeah. Everything happens and goes away so fast, it's like hard to keep up. But yeah, it was right after we finished recording.
Yeah.
You texted me because I wasn't really paying attention that day, and I was like, all right, let me check it out. And then it's just...
You said it best. You said it's like high school girls here.
Yeah. And here's the main tweet that kind of got the most attention from Elon, accusing Trump of being in the Epstein files. He's since deleted the tweet, but it's like, I think it got like 100 million views before he deleted it. So, I mean,
so it's out there. And, my comeback on that was, if that's true, and number one, we know that he knew Epstein, right?
Yeah.
And there's already been some stuff out there about interactions that they had, and Donald Trump even says he threw him out of a club that he had. If there were something really incriminating on Donald Trump and the Epstein files, don't you think Joe Biden or whoever was running Joe Biden would have released it before the election?
Yeah,
of course they would.
Most likely. I mean, the only explanation that they didn't is if they felt it was too dangerous to open that can of worms because they're all implicated too.
Yeah.
But then, you have Kash Patel and Dan Bongino being kind of weird about it. Like Kash Patel went on Joe Rogan and said that there's no videos of anyone being victimized after Pam Bondi, the attorney general, said there's tens of thousands of videos of people being victimized, including minors and children. So it's just weird. Like, they're telling us all these things, and then it's like, we'll release it. We'll give you the files. We'll release it. And then nothing happens. So what's going on?
I don't know. Well, they've since made up. So they've kissed and made up, and things are, although Trump and Elon haven't talked yet, at least as of this recording, but Elon is backing what Trump is doing out in California, which is going to make up a big part of this week's episode of the podcast. There's other stuff to talk about. Our economy, for the first month that was recorded after what Trump called Independence Day with the tariffs. And you know how I feel about that. I mean, I'm not sold on that. I hope he proves me wrong, because unlike the media out there that, when that story comes out, you almost feel between the lines of the story, it's like, damn it, inflation wasn't up. Damn it. You feel that from the media.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way. I disagree with him on the tariffs, but I want this country to win. And, it looks good. The economy showed less inflation than expected after the announced tariffs. GM, General Motors, investing $4 billion in new U.S. manufacturing, including for the Kansas City area. They're going to bring the Equinox back to this country, and they're going to build it at the Fairfax plant in KCK as opposed to Mexico. I think that's a win for the United States. They're bringing back other production from Canada because of the 25% tariff that Trump put on both of those countries. And he said all along, if you build it in America, there's zero tariff.
Right.
And GM is taking him up on that. Now, GM was one of those companies, along with Ford, who, they must feel like it's the tail wagging the dog or whatever, because, Biden's in and he's like, we're doing away with gas-powered engines by such and such date. You've got to change everything. And they do. And then Trump gets elected and he goes, screw that. We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And 90% of the country doesn't want to do it either. So now, GM is retooling, and it's a good news story for the Kansas City market. It's good news for a market in Tennessee that's getting a GM plant and one in Michigan. So that's good news, right? I would think.
Yeah, definitely. And do we still have the F-150 plant here too?
Right. That's made in Clay Como.
Yeah.
Ford.
Yeah.
Does that.
Yeah. So that'll be two major plants in the area.
Fairfax forever was they were doing the Chevy Volt there. But again,
nobody bought that.
The demand is not there for that.
Nobody bought that car.
Right. They used to do the Malibu. They did an Oldsmobile product back in the day. Fairfax has been a plant in Kansas City since World War II. It was built in World War II. They made aircraft there for World War II, and then it became a General Motors plant. And now it's going to be humming, thousands of jobs. And when you have thousands of jobs in a plant like that, the down economy continues to grow too, because those people need to eat. So there's restaurants that come out of that. There's suppliers for the plant. I mean, it's really good news. This is good news for Kansas City. This at a time when we're fighting over how much money can we give the Chiefs and Royals to either stay in Missouri or go to Kansas. This gift came out of heaven, and it's Donald Trump that did it.
Yep.
It's the tariffs that lead to the production coming back to KCK. So that's a good thing.
Let's just hope that those jobs go to actual Kansas Cityans and not H-1B visa foreigners.
Don't get me started on that. One other thing I was going to inject here in the open. On Saturday, there's a planned No King's Day protest in large cities across America. Have you heard about this?
I did hear about it in a group, yeah.
1,800 communities, up to 1 million people are expected to show up. One of the organizers of the protest said this week, it's the most patriotic thing you can do in the U.S. is to show up peacefully and petition your government for something better. Okay, well, we don't have kings in the United States. We have a president, and this president is actually doing his job, unlike the last president. And here's the deal. If you don't like it, we've got another election coming up in less than 2 years. Have an idea, have a concept that you sell us on and we buy into, and then we'll have the election. And if you're right and we're wrong, you'll win the House, you'll win the Senate, and by God, you can impeach him again. Won't that be fun? And then 2 years down the road from that, we're going to have another presidential election, and Donald Trump will not be on the ballot.
Yeah.
So basically, this is an exercise in masturbation. You're going to show up. It's number one, it's Saturday, so it's Donald Trump's birthday. That's not the reason we're spending $45 million for a parade. That's because the Army is turning 250 years old, and it's also Flag Day, a couple of important things on the calendar. Happens to be Donald Trump's birthday. And you want to do this to make a stink. Okay, you may get 1 million people to show up. I think that is very optimistic. Very optimistic. Almost 80 million people voted for Donald Trump for president. So you're already in a very, very small minority. And the people who are on the other side of the aisle, they know what I just said. They've got to win an election. You win an election and you'll get what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking through, I pulled up the website for people watching, and, you know, as all these things are, it just looks very polished, you know, very planned. It's like, how do all these people get the same signs? You know, it's like it's the opposite of grassroots. It's like all billionaire funded.
Let me give you a name. George Soros. I think he's behind a lot of this.
And I haven't watched this. I literally just pulled this up on Twitter, but there's somebody talking about getting paid to go to the protests. Let's see what he has to say.
I just got offered $200 a day to go protest ICE in New York. The organization was called No Kings. They said June 14th, we're going to be protesting, and these are the streets that you need to be on, and this is what you need to do. You need to cause chaotic disruptions, and they said that there's going to be pallets of like bricks and different things everywhere that protesters could use. They really want to wreak havoc. It's kind of ridiculous. Me as an American, you know, although I need the money, I'm like, this is very, very unpatriotic. If I was to go take this money and go protest, it's not very American. It's not what I stand for. It's obviously not even, you know, worth the time. But, you know, $200 a day is what they're paying people to go protest. The corruption is up here because it goes way beyond these organizations. They want to destroy America, and you know, people like me that need money are gonna go do it. I'm not gonna go do it, but people are gonna go do it.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously just some guy, but so that's not totally verified, but it is true. I mean, that people are getting paid to go to these protests. I mean, that's been proven time and time again, going back to 2020 and before, even back to the Occupy Wall Street stuff in like 2017, 2018, whenever that was. They're paying people to go. It's all astroturfed. It's not organic. And are there people there who are genuinely, you know, concerned about these issues? Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. But you look at the organization of the events, all the signs being the same, the communication arms that they have, and the money that they have putting into these things to pay people to go protest. It's definitely inflated for sure.
Yeah. And then, you know, you can't even agree on anything. I mean, it's like there's people out there that just have the one narrative, orange man bad, and that's all they ever come with. I told one of our keyboard warriors today, I can predict what you're going to say based on what I post. You're orange man bad, you're a one-trick pony, and my God, what will you do when Donald Trump isn't there anymore? I mean, will you have a life? Because really, every thought filters through orange man bad.
Yeah.
It's
I know some of those people too. They're very concerned all the time. They're always, you know, on 10 with anxiety. It's like,
oh, I know.
Man, I mean, calm down.
Get a life. There's
just
other stuff out there.
Yeah.
Scott
it's
Parks.
Sad, really.
You know, Parks was on our podcast at KMBZ, and he put something out on Facebook yesterday where Gavin Newsom was quoted as saying that this call that Trump talked about never happened. Never happened. And this is the man who is sending troops to California. He doesn't even know who he's on the phone with. And you saw the meme, right, where Trump showed on his own phone, and the White House logs back it up, that he had, a 16-minute phone call with Gavin Newsom?
Yeah, I'm pulling that up here.
And I called out Scott Parks on that, and he says, oh, Gavin Newsom says that call happened, but it was a different one. that he's talking about. And I'm like, well, that may be. I haven't seen that. I don't know that for a fact. But the inference that Gavin Newsom wanted everybody to believe was Trump never called him.
Yeah. Here's the tweet from Gavin. There was no call, not even a voicemail. Americans should be alarmed that a president deploying Marines onto our streets doesn't even know who he's talking to.
Yeah.
And then Trump supplied the receipts.
Yeah, he called. Look at that. There's 2 calls on there. He called him once, and then he called him a second time. And
at
it went,
1:22 a.m.
The first one was like 4 seconds. It's like Gavin's probably like, well, I'm asleep here. What the hell? And then he calls back and says, Gavin, it's me, man. It's me.
Yeah.
Get off your ass.
I just like the idea of Trump just calling people at
He never
1:23 in the
sleeps.
morning to just chew them out and yell at them.
When does he
Hilarious.
sleep?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he tweets like in the middle of the night all the time. You know, he'll tweet at 2, 3 in the morning. It's not uncommon. So,
And then our keyboard warriors on the Facebook page, I get so incensed with them. And finally, I just give up. It's like, well, how do you know he actually made the call? Do you believe that? And I said, well, there's the phone screenshot. I guess he could have made that up. The White House call log backs him up.
yeah. Well, they'll make every assumption that they have to in order to confirm their bias.
Yeah.
So you show them the screenshot and it's like, well, that could be photoshopped.
Yeah.
It's like, so, okay, so like, what are we even talking about, you know?
All right. Well, we got a lot to get to today, especially with what's going on out in California. Again, it's a fast news cycle. And sometimes I feel like when we do this podcast, it's already old news by the time you get it. But hopefully there's some opinions in here that you can take and get something out of. Like when you get your colonoscopy, you'll get something out of that. And that's peace of mind. You know, we used to always say 50 was the time when you should get your first colonoscopy. And because of the rates of colon cancer, it's come down to 45. June is National Men's Health Awareness Month. I think that's an important time to take stock of your health. We've seen what former President Biden has gone through. You know, I think if I were a man of a certain age, I'd want to get that PSA test. I just got one at my physical because, you know, I want to make sure I'm staying ahead of this sort of thing because I'd like to be around for my grandchildren and, you know, for a long time to come yet. I don't want to check out anytime soon. And if you get colon cancer and you don't know about it and it just festers and it gets into your organs and your bones and everything, you're a goner. That is tough to treat once it metastasizes. And Dr. Mark Taramina will tell you about that when you make your appointment to get that life-saving colonoscopy. We're saving lives here with Midwest GI Health and Wellness. Dr. Mark Taramina. He is in Lee Summit, and they can do it all with one-stop shopping at 816-836-2200. And we've been trying to get him on the podcast, but he is so busy.
Yeah.
You've tried several times.
I've texted him, yeah. And I just want to reiterate that June is National Men's Health Awareness Month.
It is.
That's it. National Men's Health Awareness Month. The month of June is National Men's Health Awareness
Boy,
Month.
I'm sure glad you clarified that for me. I appreciate it. Hey, and if you're turning 65, this is another conversation you need to have with another one of our fine sponsors who is right there with us on finding a common sense way forward. And when we're talking about Medicare, there's nothing common sense about that because it came from your government. And I've given up on anybody taking note of the fact that we're $37 trillion in debt because you got a president that wants to cut things. Elon Musk wants to have things happen a lot faster than government does. And then you've got 435 members of the House and 100 senators. And they've all got their own agenda. Mm-hmm. We're not fixing this anytime soon. So Medicare is still going to be a big part of the government package that you get when you're 65. And the guy who can make all the sense in the world out of it, as much as can be done, is Kirk Doris. And we really appreciate him being part of the podcast. MedicareSimplifiedKC.com is the website. Reach out to him on the phone at 816-701-6661. And boy, especially if you've got a family member that's approaching 65, a lot of decisions you're going to have to make. What plan, what part? Is there another supplement that you're going to need to get? Kirk Doris can answer all of those questions, and you don't pay him. That may be the best selling point that we've got. You don't pay him. He comes to you, you come to him, and you guys work it out. It's going to be great if you're turning 65 or you got somebody in your family who's turning 65. All right, California Mayhem. Why is this happening? I think that's where we ought to start with this. Why is it happening? ICE, Immigration and Custom Enforcement, they are in the field right now trying to do what was mandated through the election. And I think it's still a 60-40 issue anyway, maybe higher than that. Donald Trump ran on getting the illegal criminals, the worst first, out of this country. The people that Joe Biden let in when every country on the planet emptied their prisons and insane asylums and said, head for that southern border. Those are the people who are here, the illegals. And yes, there are other illegals out there. And I get what the other argument's going to be from the other side. They're great people. They work really hard. They pay taxes and stay out of trouble. And you know what I've always said, Kurt? If that's you, you better stay under the radar. Don't show up in L.A. Don't throw a brick through a police car. Stay under the radar because you got away with something. It's almost like you cheated on your taxes and now you've held your breath. Okay, I got away with it. Everything's good. Okay, you came across the border illegally. And so many of these politicians conflate those two things. They just use the word immigrant interchangeably with legal and illegal.
They'll say undocumented Americans.
Yeah, well, they're illegals. I'm sorry. They got away with something. So if you got away with it, stay under the radar because right now ICE is in the field and they're getting the worst of the worst. And if they get some other people caught up in it who happen to be with them who are also illegal, again, we said last week, he has not deported one citizen of the United States. He has not deported one legal immigrant to the United States. They are getting rid of illegal immigrants, which was a product of a landslide victory and consistent with where polling is. But depending on which network you watch for your news, you would think, kind of like back in 2020, these are mostly peaceful protests, just people standing around looking at a car on fire. They maybe brought some marshmallows. Check out the video.
Of which one? Oh, I played that in the background while you were talking.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, the car on fire. But a lot of
it
people...
had audio, though. It had audio, and I think the audio is important.
Oh, okay. I'll pull that back up. While I'm pulling that up, too, I mean, one of the things that is telling, and I'm not the first person to make this argument, but, you know, this picture that I just showed, all these people carrying Mexican flags, it just... Okay, like you're trying to leave Mexico to come to America, and then you come to America and you're waving a Mexican flag. Like, if you like Mexico so much, it's right there. You can go back.
Go back.
I don't understand. Like, I don't get it.
They're waving flags for countries they don't want to go back to, and they're burning the American flag.
Yeah. Countries that they are supposedly refugees from. Yeah. They're applying for asylum in America to escape those other countries. And then they come to this country, they don't assimilate, and they wave the flag of the country that they fled.
Think about where
that makes sense.
Where our families came from, because your family goes back to Europe, right?
Yeah.
So does mine. Okay. They came to this country because they loved this country. They wanted to be a part of this country. They wanted to sing the national anthem, sing God Bless America. They love what this country stands for. And those kind of people are fine. Go through the immigration process and become an American because you love the country. Don't come here and wave somebody else's flag and burn our flag.
Yeah. Here's that video again with audio.
Large group of people. It could turn very volatile if you move law enforcement in there in the wrong way and turn what is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn into a massive confrontation and altercation between officers and demonstrators.
Yeah, that's Channel 7 ABC in Los Angeles. And they're saying, you know, they're just out there, you know, we got to be careful, Kurt. We can't insert police because it would make it a more volatile situation.
Yeah. It's not volatile already.
Yeah. So Fox News is making all this up, right? And then you got Maxine Waters. And so many Democrats have said just absolutely insane, ridiculous, stupid things. I think she sums it up for all of them.
And even those who were out of step with what we are advocating, peaceful protest, did not create any violence. Nobody was shot. Nobody was killed.
Nobody was shot.
Get it in your head.
Nobody was killed.
When martial law is called, what are you going to say? I missed the point. Don't miss the point, you all. Don't think that somehow, because they called out the National Guard, there was violence. There was no violence. I was on the street. I know. And I went from downtown detention back out into the community, talking to people what happened in Paramount, what happened in Compton, what happened in Inglewood. So, first of all, get it straight and don't just rely on what you're being told or the few incidents that you saw.
Yeah. So
don't believe your lion eyes is
Yeah.
what she's saying.
And, you know, as AOC would say, they broke into the Apple store because they were hungry. I mean, that's where the apples are, right? They stole all this stuff from the Apple store, right? Did you hear about this? Apple basically tracked the devices.
Yeah. They've done that before, too. That's not the first time they've done
Yeah.
that. Obviously,
So-
all the phones have location tracking
Exactly.
on them. Like, come on.
So if you're gonna break in and steal stuff just because, I mean, steal shoes. You know, this is one of the plays that the Democrats have run from the 5-play Democrat playbook. They're really wearing out 2 plays here. First of all, it's Trump's fault. I don't know how many times they blamed everything that's happened on Trump. When Trump put the National Guard and the Marines in, they said he made the situation worse. I don't know how that happens because the National Guard is guarding federal buildings and they've got the backing of the police out there. But Gavin Newsom says they made it worse. The other play they're wearing out is nothing to see here, and nobody's buying that.
Yeah.
Nothing to see here. Nothing to see. It's a very small part of LA, and we just want to be very careful not to put the police in here.
That may have worked pre-2020. And it certainly may have worked pre-social media or pre-internet, but it's just too obvious now. I mean, their lying is so obvious.
Yeah.
And it's like if they're going to lie to your face about something like this, oh, there's no violence, there's no violence. How can you believe them in anything that they say?
You can't. And the least political person in this equation is Donald Trump.
Right.
He's not running for anything. He's termed out. He's not going to run anymore. So what he's done is he's gotten this election victory. He's in there being the president, doing what the president should do. It may seem foreign to people because we went through 4 years of Joe Biden eating ice cream and having other people do his job for him. We've got a guy in there, an alpha male. I know you like that about Donald Trump. He's a real man.
He's a real man. A real man.
And he's doing his job, and he's not political. And now they're saying, well, he only did this to knock Gavin Newsom out of the 2028 election. No, he didn't.
Yeah.
He went through 2020 in the summer of love, and he watched Minneapolis burn down in mostly peaceful protests. And he's like, you know what? I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, and again, it's whatever ridiculous hypothetical that they have to come up with to fit their narrative.
Yeah.
You know, it's because he doesn't want Gavin Newsom running for office. It's like, where are you getting this from?
Yeah.
It's obviously not that.
So you know that in another life, if I came back, I really wanted to be a history teacher. I love history. My degrees in college are history and political science. I know you just yawned on that.
No,
Wow.
I
Were you on
didn't.
camera
I
when you
was
did
not
that?
on camera.
Wow. So I feel like I'm teaching history here because some people just don't believe this. Democrats are shocked that Donald Trump would send in the National Guard to restore order. Never been done before. If the governor doesn't want them in there, the president has no right to do that. Well, here's a little wake-up call for Gavin Newsom. Surely he knows this. California is one of 50 states. It's not a separate country. It's one of 50. And if the president of the United States thinks the national interest is at play here, he can use the National Guard. It's been done before. I've got some examples for you. Let's go back to Dwight David Eisenhower. You ever heard of Dwight Eisenhower?
I have.
Yeah, he was a great president. Had 8 very peaceful years back in the 1950s. There were some things that happened. The Supreme Court said that separate but equal was no longer going to be the policy of the land. Now, that wasn't an election thing. That was the Supreme Court ruled. And it came down to Arkansas, and, a black student wanted to enroll in a white high school, and the governor, a Democrat in Arkansas, said, no, we're not going to do that. And Dwight Eisenhower said, yes, you will, and I'm going to send in the National Guard to make that happen. Dwight Eisenhower, a very popular president, overriding a Democrat governor, and we have a little video to show you.
Images of violence showing Little Rock in a state of crisis made headlines worldwide. President Eisenhower took immediate action.
Extreme situation has been created in Little Rock. This challenge must be met, and with such measures as will preserve to the people as a whole their lawfully protected rights in a climate permitting their free and fair exercise. In the present case, the troops are there pursuant to law, solely for the purpose of preventing interference with the orders of the court.
There you go.
Images of violence.
And you know what? Back in the day, I guess if these keyboard warriors were out there, they would say bald man bad because Dwight didn't have much hair. Okay, so John F. Kennedy, certainly you've heard of him, right?
Yep.
In 1963, he overrode the Democrat governor in Alabama. Do you see a pattern here? It's Democrat governors that are causing this problem to secure black students going into the University of Alabama, again, pursuant to a court decision. And back then, George Wallace, although he had an epiphany later in his life, back then, George Wallace said segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. He was definitely a segregationist, and because the court went the other way to desegregate this country, John F. Kennedy had to use the National Guard over George Wallace's objections.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This afternoon, following a series of threats and defiant statements, the presence of Alabama National Guardsmen was required on the University of Alabama to carry out the final and unequivocal order of the United States District Court of the Northern District of Alabama. That order called for the admission of two clearly qualified young Alabama residents who happened to have been born Negro. That they were admitted peacefully on the campus is due in good measure to the conduct of the students of the University of Alabama who met their responsibilities in a constructive way.
Okay, so there you go. You've got a Democrat president and a Republican president, both of them overriding Democrat governors, and LBJ after him. I don't have a video on this, but LBJ, who followed John F. Kennedy as president in 1965, he sent in the National Guard to protect the Selma marchers, again, over Governor Wallace's objection. And, the thing about that is Governor Wallace, the segregationist, I don't know if you know this or not, surely you do, he ran as a third-party candidate in 1968 because the South was so incensed that the Supreme Court said you will have desegregation in this country. They ran as a third party, and he took some states with him. So we weren't settled in the 60s like we are today. There was a lot of violence, and presidents had to use the National Guard to restore order. In 1967, LBJ sent troops to Detroit to quell violence there. The difference there, it was with the cooperation of the Republican governor of Michigan, George Romney, Mitt's dad.
Mitt's dad.
Yeah. He said, please help us. A Republican governor, his city is on fire, and the mayor also cooperated with that, and they said, we need your help. Bring in the National Guard. And LBJ, who was a different party than the governor of Michigan, they worked together on that, and they quelled that violence. So there is plenty of history. And then there's our favorite. We've used this clip before. This was the Democrat mayor of Chicago in 1968, Richard Daley, who is a legend in Chicago. They had riots in 1968 there, and the difference between him and the Democrats of today, maybe Gavin Newsom might want to go back and look at some tape of Richard Daley, because Richard Daley knew how to handle stuff.
I said to him very emphatically and very definitely that an order be issued immediately under his signature to shoot to kill any arsonist or anyone with a Molotov cocktail in their hand in Chicago, to fire a building because they're potential murderers, and to issue a police order to shoot, to maim, or cripple anyone looting any stores in our city. And above all, the crime of arson is to me the most hideous and worst crime of any, and should be dealt with in this fashion. I was disappointed to know that every policeman out on the beat was supposed to use his own decision. And this decision evidently was his. In my opinion, he should have had instructions to shoot arsonists and to shoot looters.
There you go. Richard Daley. How would that be different? And then you're like, oh my God, they've got a First Amendment right to do all that. No, you don't. You got a First Amendment right to protest, right? Protest peacefully. But when you cross the line, when you decide I'm going to take advantage of this to rip off the Apple store, or I'm going to set a police car on fire, I'm going to throw a brick at a police officer. You've crossed a line that you can't come back from. And that's what the National Guard is there. They're backing up the police officers. I'd love to hear the beat officers in L.A. and their thoughts on having the National Guard at their back and the Marine Corps at their back. You know, Mark Zarda, who is a longtime fan of this podcast, dear friend of both of ours, he was in the Marine Corps in 1992, and he told me that when the Rodney King thing was going on, their base was put on standby. They didn't have to be used, but they were put on standby. Think about that for a second. So, again, not the first time that the Marines have at least been considered for something in a place like L.A. This is one of the reasons, by the way, that legal immigrants, and I want to make that distinction here, legal immigrants had a 40-point swing in the 2024 election toward Trump. Did you know that? 40 points. They know the difference between legal and illegal. Are you looking for something?
No, just looking for that article.
Because I want to play something off of the podcast page that makes this point. I just put it up today. It's a little quick video with Bill Clinton.
Okay.
So if you can find that real quick. It's something where I agree with Bill in his video to a point. And again, this is where the Orange Man Bad crowd loses me, because they're like, anything out of Donald Trump's mouth is wrong, it's poison, he's Hitler, and blah, 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 blah. I'm a guy who can look at an issue and say, okay, I agree with that. But you'll see in this video where he loses me. See if you can figure it out.
There are 500,000 open jobs in manufacturing today in the United States. I don't think we need fewer immigrants. I think we need more. Should they obey the rule of law? Yes. If they bring drugs into the country, should we escort them away? Yes. If they hurt people? Yes. But the truth is that immigrants are much more likely to start new jobs. 40+% of the biggest companies in America were started by first or second generation immigrants. We need you.
Okay, tell me where he lost me.
I can tell you where he lost me.
Well, I know where he lost you. Where'd he lose me?
I don't know.
Okay, because he's right about the number of companies that were started in this country by immigrants. Legal immigrants. He's merging illegal and legal. Mm-hmm. It's two different things. Donald Trump would tell you, we need more legal immigration to this country.
Well, he hasn't always said that. That's a newer thing that he's kind of gone back on, but he hasn't always said that.
Well, I mean, if we're going to bring all these manufacturing jobs back, we got to have people to work the manufacturing jobs. That's what I'm saying. I mean, the
plant in Kansas City is a great case study for that. Are we going to hire Kansas Cityans or are we going to hire foreigners? Even if they're legal immigrants, they're still coming here and taking jobs from people that are in our community.
Are they?
Yeah, absolutely.
We've had this debate before. Our population is declining.
Yeah, people need to have more kids.
You can dream that all you want. The reality on the ground is we need more legal immigration. I get that you and I disagree on that. I want to talk about
Let me ask you a question. If we take everyone from America and move them to Mexico, and we take everyone from Mexico and move them to America, which country is America and which country is Mexico?
That's a ridiculous comparison.
But you understand my point, right?
I do understand your point, but you're looking at one country. It's a big world. There's 7 billion people in this world.
Yeah, how many of them want to come here?
I don't know.
6 billion, maybe?
Well, maybe they all do. But we don't need them all. We need to ferret out who we need and what we need them for. That's what the basis for legal immigration is. That's why your family's here. That's why my family's here.
But it's like we just go to that immediately. Like, that's the point that he was making. He was arguing. He wasn't saying, well, you know, we have 500,000 available jobs, so let's fill them with Americans. And if we have extra jobs left over, then we can bring in some legal immigrants to fill the jobs. He's saying we have 500,000 available jobs. That's why we need more immigrants.
Yeah.
It's like they go right there. He's not even talking about Americans. He's not advocating
You're
for
missing
Americans.
the point that I'm trying to disagree with Bill Clinton on, and that is there's a difference between legal and illegal immigration. And in that clip, he smoothly transitions to illegal immigrants today are the same as the legal immigrants who came over from Italy and Germany and Ireland and England, and set up the Fortune 500 companies that are in this country.
Right.
Did you get how smoothly he made that transition?
No, they all do it. They're very slick with that.
That's why he's the Schlickmeister, as Rush Limbaugh used to call him. I don't want to get hung up on something that we disagree on, because again, the current president is saying we also need more legal immigration. We are always going to have legal immigration. There's an avenue to become a citizen of the United States.
But that's not true. We haven't always had legal immigration. We've had periods where we've completely shut it down for decades.
Is that what you want to do? Is that what you're advocating?
Yeah, 100%.
For how long?
For as long as it takes for us to get our shit together.
Okay. That's your opinion? It's different than mine.
But it's not. It's like there's a total historical precedent for it. You look at Ellis Island, right?
Right.
What percentage of the people that got on a boat in terrible conditions with $50 or $5 in their pocket came over the Atlantic Ocean, landed in Ellis Island? What percentage of those people were turned away and had to go back?
I don't know that number.
A lot. I mean, it was like half. It was like a lot of people. And then they got to a certain point, they got to capacity, and they shut it down, and they shut down legal immigration. We've had periods where there's been more. We've had periods where there's been none.
Don't disagree with you on that.
Yeah.
But, saying something like we need to shut it down 100% until we get our shit together based on what? Your set of circumstances?
Well, based on the experience of the average American, the things that we talk about all the time, jobs, inflation, the cost of living, all of these things are being negatively affected by people who are coming here and get either illegally, obviously, and getting put up in hotels or getting benefits or, whatever, just putting a drain on the American economy. But it's not just them. It's also the legal H-1B visa workers. You look at the tech industry. It's like all these people from India that are coming, they're working for half of what it would cost to hire an American. And so all these companies just hire Indians and they bring them over here so they can save money. And then they're not hiring Americans.
Yeah.
And these people don't get jobs.
Well, that's a complicated issue. I just wanted to make the simple point that a slick Democrat politician basically just lulled you in, and
I just couldn't let that. I couldn't let that
and
slide.
made the merge between illegal and legal. And the reason that Trump got a 40-point swing with legal immigrants is because they understand the difference.
Yeah,
that's my point.
Yeah, and it's not like, people blow this out of proportion where they're like, well, you just hate immigrants. You just, you want them to, you think they're less than Americans or something like that. That's not what it's about. It's about, we have a sovereign country. We have a government. The government is for American citizens, and it is for advocating for and looking out for American citizens first and foremost. If everything was rosy right now, if everyone had all this money in their pockets, you know what I mean? The stock market wasn't going up and down like crazy. There wasn't massive inflation. People couldn't afford food. People didn't have to work 2-3 jobs to pay their mortgage. Then, okay, let's have that conversation. But we're not there. We're not there right now. This is America. It's not the world. It's America. So let's, again, it's not a hateful thing. I love all people, but we need to have our priorities in order.
Well, it's a good thing that when your family was coming over that they didn't get turned back at Ellis Island.
Okay. So, what's your point? That's not a point.
You're here.
I am here.
I'm here.
Yeah. Okay.
So what's the more troops thing?
Oh, that was just, there was a story that went kind of viral from ABC News. And the headline reads, there are now more U.S. troops deployed to Los Angeles than in Iraq and Syria. There are 4,800 activated Guard and Marine personnel in L.A. compared to the 2,500 troops in Iraq and 1,500 in Syria. And so there was a bunch of reactions, but this guy's just one. I guess he's running for Congress. There are more troops in L.A. right now than in Iraq and Syria combined. Let that sink in. We're being occupied by our own government, and they call it peace. And I was curious of your take on that because I found it interesting.
I'd rather have them here quelling violence than in Syria.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, what's our business in Syria?
Yeah.
you know, seems pretty obvious, but
we have got a lot of illegal immigrants, a lot of, as the president says, bad hombres here in this country who need to be rooted out. And maybe if Joe Biden didn't open the border for 4 years, we wouldn't have that problem. But we do, and we're in the process of fixing it. So hopefully that's going to continue here. As will the podcast, as we tell you about another one of our fine sponsors. The economy is improving. The economy is going to get better. And I like some of the things that are happening. If you're ready to buy a new house or maybe refinance your mortgage, this could be a great time for you to get a hold of the redcarpetlender.com. That is Chad Taylor, dear friend of mine, who did the mortgage on my house. It's amazing how many of our sponsors are also people that I've done business with. I think it kind of goes together like that. And the Red Carpet Lender got me into a great mortgage for my house. I'm very happy with it. I'm going to pay it off pretty quick. But you could be in a different stage of life right now. Okay, maybe you've just, you're going to buy the new house. You'd like to know how much house you can afford. Well, that's where Chad comes in handy, because he can get you pre-approved for a mortgage, and then you can go see my friend Michael Schroer, and you can get that deal done. That's kind of how that works together. When you work with Chad, there's no upfront hard credit hit to see if he can get an approval for your home loan. He'll waive lender fees for veterans as a thank you for your service, free appraisals for first-time home buyers, police and fire department employees, along with school district employees. It's really good to find out exactly how much house you can afford, and Chad Taylor is the guy who can get that done at theredcarpetlender.com. I'm not giving you a phone number here, just a website, theredcarpetlender.com. Get with Chad, especially if you want to use your mortgage to bail yourself out. Maybe you got a lot of credit card debt. Credit cards right now are about 30% on the rate. And you can do a whole lot better using your mortgage. Chad can show you how to do that. So when you've got your approved mortgage, then you call my friend Michael Schroer and say, hey, we need to get our first house, or we're upgrading the house because we got more kids, we got more bedrooms we got to fill. Our kids are gone, we're downsizing, or we found this piece of land that we want to build on. Michael Schroer is an expert on all of that, and he'll get your house sold. RE/MAX Elite in Lee's Summit is where Michael is based out of. You can reach him there at 816-373-8400. I'll give it a cell phone number too for him. It's 816-520-9342. Let him sell your house. Let him find you the perfect house for whatever stage of life you're in. Michael Schroer, SCHROER, Michael Schroer, broker with RE/MAX Elite in Lee's Summit, and a proud contributor to our podcast. Okay, so one of the things that the Orange Man Bad crowd, and I don't know why I fight with these people, because like I said, there's 2 or 3 of them. I know exactly what they're going to say. I press this button and I get that result. Mm-hmm. You know who else is really good at that? Is Donald Trump. Yeah. He knows if he presses that button, this is going to happen over here. So they're like, well, and I, give them their own voice. Well, he's doing this. What about J6? January 6th, abbreviated to J6. Because again, the liberals will beat that drum until the end of time, or until Donald Trump is off the stage. That's any violence that happens in this country, they're going to cover it by saying, what about J6?
No.
What about it? Okay, he sends troops to California. Where was this on January 6th? Right? So we're going to deal with that now. Okay? First of all, there's the timeline. It was a 4-hour event. 4 hours. It looked bad. I told you it looked bad. I said on the air on KFKF, this is a very bad look for the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. It is a bad look. And the people who broke the law went to jail. And a lot of other people got swept up in that, and they sat in jails for years with no charges. That's a problem constitutionally that we could deal with another time. But it was a 4-hour event. Second thing, Trump did ask for additional protection for the Capitol. He did. There are receipts on that. Third, it was Nancy Pelosi's call. Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House. That is the most senior person at the United States Capitol. More so than the majority leader of the Senate, Senate Pro Tem. Speaker of the House is the top level. What we have for you, and I heard this guy on another radio show, and I thought, I've got to find this. And I found similar, not exactly what he did on the radio show, but this is the former Capitol Police Chief, Stephen Sund. Now, before you conspiracy theories and all that, Stephen Sund has been with the Capitol Police from Bill Clinton through Joe Biden. So he served Democrats and Republicans over that time. And he will tell you where the blame lies for the lack of protection at the Capitol on January 6th.
Your book seems to support the theory that has been put out by Republicans that Nancy Pelosi and her staff chose political optics over protecting the Capitol in the days running up to January 6th. Where is the proof that they were behind not allowing the National Guard to come?
Well, I think you can look at it from a couple different aspects. One, when I went to ask for the National Guard on Sunday, January 3rd, it was her, Sergeant-at-Arms, Paul Irving, that denied the initial request, citing a concern for optics. I think there was a well-known concern that she had referred to federal agents and National Guard on city streets during the 2020 protests as stormtroopers. So I think that was some of his concern associated with that. And then you also got to look at the oversight structure that they had in place for the Capitol Police. One, I'm the only police chief that I'm aware of in the United States of America that has a federal law preventing me from calling in federal resources both before an event and also while I'm facing an emergency like I faced on January 6th. Those are laws put in place and voted on by Congress. And also when you think of the oversight put in place for the Capitol Police, it's political oversight that reports to political parties within Congress. No matter how you cut it, when your oversight of a police department is reporting to a political party, that's a recipe for disaster.
This is so explosive, the accusation that you make, an allegation in the book, that this was Speaker Pelosi acting politically. We reported on this back in December as well, that this is what you said that she did. I go back to this question. What is the real proof that she knew that the National Guard was asked for by the Capitol Police, by you, before January 6th?
The proof that she was aware, again, that'd have to go into statements or testimony from Paul Irving, possibly his phone records, which I think have not been released so far, that would relate to my going in Sunday morning, January 3rd, requesting the National Guard. I think when I talk about it, and I'd written it and it was in the book well before Mike Stinger's passing. When I went and talked to Mike Stinger and said, "Hey, Mr. Stinger or Mike," and I asked about, when I went to go see him on January 3rd, he so quickly turned around and asked for me to call the director, the commanding general of the National Guard. It made me think he had some heads up I was coming. When I asked him about that, he specifically said Paul Irving had called him in advance of me arriving, said, "Sund is coming." He came to my office asking for the National Guard. Speaker Pelosi is never going to go for that. We have to come up with another idea. That was something he said right off the bat. And Mike, he's an operational person, but for him to come up with that idea that quickly, he had to have some advanced knowledge that was coming by. But also on January 6th, when you think about the fact, 71 minutes, 71 agonizing minutes, I had to wait to get approval from Paul Irving to call the National Guard. That right there should tell you something. There are going to be records that'll indicate what communications he's having back to leadership. Because I think in some of his testimony, he even said he wanted to make sure leadership was aware or staff was aware that he was bringing in the National Guard. Not that he thought he needed their approval, but he wanted to make sure they're aware. That right there, 71 minutes while my men and women are fighting for their lives, that's unacceptable.
And look, and every second does count in a situation like that. As you pointed out, people were fighting for their lives. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. So that's Stephen Sund. You think he's in the bag for Trump?
Well, there's just a logistical thing to it as well. Like the first point that you made, that it was 4 hours. There was obviously the rally scheduled for that day. Yeah. And that's where he was saying, for extra precaution, they were requesting it ahead of time. But it's not like this thing in LA where it's a multi-day riot and he's calling in. He didn't call in the National Guard prior to it.
No.
He called it in after he saw that there were cars burning and people looting and burning things. Then you call in the National Guard. So, how are you going to do that? And he kind of pointed to having to wait 71 minutes to even get to the guy. But it's like, if it's a 2 or 3 or 4 hour thing, it starts happening. Okay, and then you call it in. When are they going to actually get there? You know, it's a logistical thing too.
Well, they knew. I mean, Trump was making a big deal out of January 6th, and he, intimated that something might happen on January 6th that could overturn the election. And there are people who are in the bag for Donald Trump and will do whatever Donald Trump wants. So on January 3rd, this police chief asked for help and was told, no, Pelosi doesn't want it. The optics aren't really good. I wonder if she liked the optics after the fact when they barricaded the Capitol complex for how many months and didn't let anybody in. That was a great look for the United States of America. Then you have Nancy Pelosi, in her own words, on January 6th.
We have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff that should we call the Capitol Police? I mean, the National Guard? Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
Well, that's a great question, isn't it? You know?
They thought that they had sufficient resources. No, that is not a question of how they had. They don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
All right, so there you go. Nancy.
She really is an insufferable, you know what, isn't she?
Yes.
She has an attitude about her that is really off-putting.
So there you go. I mean, that's what my answer is going to be on January 6th.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. 100%.
All right. So moving on here, we want to talk about Funhouse Pizza, right?
Yep.
Funhouse Pizza. Jim Dingman, our pal. I'm going through my phone. I'm delaying here a little bit because he sent me like 15,000 texts on something. June 25th at Funhouse Pizza in Lee Summit on 50 Highway. They're going to do a 2-hour Customer Appreciation Day. It's tied in with the Lee Summit Police Department. They're going to do pizza with a policeman. They're going to have their fireworks tent out there from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Okay? And I'm not supposed to say that there will be free pizza there.
Okay, then don't say it.
I'm not going to say that. You did not hear me say that it's a free pizza event. You didn't hear me say that, right?
Correct.
All right. Okay.
Say what?
So there you go. We're going to be some prizes and some other stuff like that. So Funhouse Pizza, Lee Summit. Circle that on your calendar. I think I'm going to go stop by as well that night, June 25th, between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. Part of Pizza with a Policeman in Lee Summit. Jim also has another location in Blue Springs on 7 Highway. Great pizza. Fun place to be. For whatever gathering you've got going on there, Funhouse Pizza ought to be your first stop. Then you got to check out your roof. Man, how many storms have we had? We've had a bunch of storms. You need to get Austin Watterson and his team up on your roof. You may well have an insurance claim, and time is ticking on that to make that claim. If you need a new roof, Royal Roofing and Solar, once again, they did the roof on my house, and you should check it out. We put up pictures of it before and after. I had that hideous shake shingle roof that the HOA made me have, and then they did away with that. And then Austin and his team got there. Roofedbyroyal.com. That is the website, 816-540-7057. So check that out and get that roof going with Royal Roofing and Solar. So more fun with the trans movement. Why do I wander into these places? I do, though. You know, I see something on Facebook and I'm like, you know, and I saw this on Channel 9's Facebook page. And it was like this trans athlete who's basically breaking a lot of records and doing all the things that we say should not be done. So go ahead and roll the video on this trans athlete.
In the moment, I was like, there's no way. Like, there's no way I did this. Like, I didn't win. Like, no. Like, there's no way. And then the girls, like, they were like, no, like, you won. Like, you did that. Like, you won. And I was like, oh, my gosh, I did. I won. Like, triple has always been, like, my thing. Like, I've just always been drawn to triple. Like, that one is going to be my best event. So once I get into triple, I'm like, this is my event. I'm not going to lose. I mean, the support was just intense. I mean, I wasn't expecting any of it, to be honest. I was expecting to just go out there and compete alone. They really made my experience perfect, so I will be like forever grateful for them because they helped me through getting through the weekend. So I was just like, where did this come from? Like, wow. Like
wow.
This,
like wow.
Yeah, that's enough.
Yeah.
Tension is just,
to be clear, this is a biological male competing on a women's team, which I thought we were going to do away with, right? It puts Title IX on its head. And the caption that came along with this was trying to do away with the hate surrounding this whole thing. And so once again, Kurt, I wandered into something, and here is my post on Channel 9. No hate from me. Be who you are. It's just physiologically unfair to compete with biological females. And maybe it doesn't matter in grade school. You know, I used to coach a t-ball team when my kid was a t-ball player, right? Mm-hmm. And we had boys and girls on the team. At that age, it doesn't matter. They're just out there playing. They're just having fun. By high school, the unfair advantage can cost scholarships and, depending on the sport, injuries. Rewriting the record book of female sports with the names of biological males, in my opinion, is pretty misogynistic. And boy, it was like a blowtorch coming back at me, right? A lot of people agreed. Hundreds of people liked the post that I put on Channel 9. But then the funniest one that I kept going back and forth with, this guy goes, well, I studied biology in college.
Oh,
I know. He
look out.
studied biology in college. And essentially, there's no difference between men and
I'd say
women.
Congratulations.
Yeah. No difference. That's what he says. And he studied biology in college.
If there's no difference in sports performance between men and women, or males and females, however you want to put it, then why are there no females in male sports? Why are there no trans men competing in men's leagues? Why is there not a trans man NFL player, or a trans man NBA player, or a trans man track and field athlete?
Yeah. Great point. Then the point I would make to this guy, and I got tired after a while, it's like, you know what, why am I fighting with this guy? I keep it off my personal page now. I put pictures of baby Harry up, and my life is so much better on my personal page. But I get into it with these freaking keyboard warriors who are one-trick ponies, and I shouldn't do it.
You have to be careful. It's it definitely, there's like a dopamine hit with it, but it's totally not productive. It's a waste of time, and it's tough to avoid sometimes.
And I don't have a lot of time to waste.
You see it and it's like,
yeah, I know, it just pisses you off, and you want to jump in there and say something.
Yeah.
So if there is no difference biologically between men and women, which I completely disagree with, why do we have men's and women's sports? Why does Title IX exist? Why do we have a women's basketball team? Let's just put them all on the same court. You know? What? Nobody cares about injuries, right? That's overblown. That doesn't happen. Okay, well, let's put the men and women together on a basketball court and see how many injuries there are.
Really, what it would end up looking like is that there would be no women's sports,
right?
Because there would be no women in sports, rather. Because if you had a co-ed league where it's just the best are in the league, then it's just going to be all men.
Yeah.
So, and I was not sure about this. Maybe somebody in the comments can educate me on this, because I haven't looked it up, but I think the PGA may be co-ed technically.
Well, there's the LPGA.
There is the LPGA, but I'm not sure if golf is specifically a men's league or if it's just that all men are competing in it. Because I know that some, like I'm a big pool fan, some pool events are like that where men or women can compete, but it's like the top 1,000 ranked pool players in the world are all men. So there's no competition. You have to kind of force it where you create a co-ed event, and then there's a man and a woman on a team competing against another man and a woman.
Well, if there's a golf league where I could compete and really show my skill level, it would be the kindergarten golf league. Is there such a thing as the kindergarten golf league?
The kindergarten LPGA for Dale.
So out of this came something else that kind of caught my attention, and that was a blow up between Simone Biles and Riley Gaines. Riley Gaines we've talked about quite a bit because she was the one who lost out on swimming medals to like a 6'5" man parading as a woman. I mean, this is where we've gotten to in this society, and I know you and I are 100% lockstep on this. We have allowed biological men to basically say they're a woman and get all of the rights that come with that.
Yeah. And even, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. I'm just pointing something out because we talk about language a lot. Even the use of the term biological men is like a cop out. It's a what's the word that I'm looking for? But it's granting ground to the argument. You just say men because that's what they are. They're men. They're not biological men. I mean, they are biological men, but they're also like mentally men, like you don't say that. But it's kind of like we were talking about earlier with the left calling them, undocumented Americans or whatever. We've kind of ceded that ground a little bit where we use this term biological men and don't just say, no, it's men competing in women's sports. Men and women are not the same, and not to necessarily blame you for that because I'm not, but it's just something interesting that I've noticed.
What's what I say, when someone who is clearly not a woman is competing on the women's team, you are a biological male.
Right.
So anyway, it's a 90-10 hill that Democrats consistently want to die on, and God love them. All these 90-10 hills that they want to die on, go with God. Yeah. But in this particular case, Simone Biles went after Riley Gaines. I'm not sure what prompted it.
So here, I'll kind of go through the thing real quick. So there was a separate story from that track and field thing, but there was a softball state championship, I believe, in Minnesota, where the pitcher was a guy and was like pitching shutouts and like crazy stuff. And then Riley commented on that and said, comments off, LOL, to be expected when your star player is a boy. And then that's what Simone Biles responded to. She said, at Riley Gaines, you're truly sick. All of this campaigning because you lost a race. Straight up sore loser. You should be uplifting the trans community and perhaps finding a way to make sports inclusive or creating a new avenue where trans feel safe in sports. Maybe a transgender category in all sports, but instead you bully them. One thing for sure is no one in sports is safe with you around. And then that kind of went back and forth. Riley
there was body shaming in here somewhere.
Yeah, because Simone Biles came back and said that it's ironic because the only community the only people that you could compete with are like men because you look like a man or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. But the interesting part pretty recently, like a day or two ago, was that Simone put out an apology. And this, I think, is the most interesting part of this whole story. I wanted to follow up from my last tweets. I've always believed blah, 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 blah. It didn't help for me to get personal with Riley, which I apologize for. These are sensitive, complicated issues. So she put out this like very prepared apology statement. And it's really interesting. And I think it's a win. Even though I don't care about Simone Biles, I don't even care about Riley Gaines. I don't care about women's sports. But to see the cultural landscape shift to where now it's these people that need to come out and make an apology. It's not Riley Gaines that's coming out and making an apology. It really shows that we've made some ground on this topic and that most people are really turned off by this. And when somebody comes out and, is an advocate or they attack people who are advocating for actual women's sports, they now, maybe 5 years ago, this wouldn't have been the case, but now they have to come out and make this like prepared apology. And this case aside, because again, I don't care about it, but just in general, that I think is a massive win culturally for us.
There you go.
Yeah.
We end on a win. And if you've ended your day on a loss, perhaps you've been in a wreck, maybe a deer jumped out in front of you. I saw the deer were very active this morning here in the Kansas City area. Yeah, you got to get that car to Dale's Body Shop in Blue Springs. I was coming home from work the other day, and I saw a tow truck towing a wrecked Kansas side police car headed toward Blue Springs, because I know Dale Reynolds works on a lot of police cars that have been wrecked on the Kansas side.
We know where that's going.
That's how popular he is, and why Dale's Body Shop, the original, has been around since 1987. So if you get in a wreck and that wrecker comes to you and says, hey, where are we taking this thing because it's not totaled, take it to Dale's Body Shop in Blue Springs. When you buy local, your dollars stay local, and that is very important, okay? And he's going to fix it right. You got precious cargo riding in that vehicle. You want to make sure that the job has been done right. The customers come from Topeka, St. Joe, Lawrence. taking care of customers, taking care of you, not just in Blue Springs, throughout the Kansas City metro since 1987. That is Dale's Body Shop. And a lot of those customers come courtesy of Bob Watson at State Farm. He's been a State Farm agent for 51 years. So he's been insuring a lot of cars, a lot of homes, a lot of life insurance policies, a lot of business insurance policies, boats, licensed in Missouri and Kansas. Please do me a favor, and when it's time to review your insurance, get with Bob Watson and his team, a local team that will take care of you in your time of need. And if you bundle your home and car insurance, you'll save even more. He's at 816-229-7878. He's been my insurance agent for over 30 years, and he's ready to take care of you. We've had a lot of meat on this show and a lot of, gnashing of teeth and all that. We're going to end on the lighter side. I came across this. I'm not even sure where I got it, Kurt, but Fox News special report anchor Bret Baier. He's also an author. He's written some history books along the way. You've seen him on Fox News, right?
Yeah.
What do you think of him? Do you think he's like a party guy, an outgoing kind of a fun guy?
Well, now I have a different opinion.
Yeah. Well, you've seen the video. Before that, I mean, kind of a stuffy.
I didn't really watch him enough, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, I've seen some of his interviews. He's had high-profile interviews, with Trump and other stuff that I've seen clips from. And I think maybe I've seen him a couple times in sort of a more like unscripted kind of interview type thing on YouTube or something. I don't know. I mean, he seems relatively normal, but I don't really know much about him. 2 words I would use to describe him are milk toast. Is that one word? I think it is. And vanilla. Yeah. Right? Vanilla. He's just kind of a guy. And then I saw this video and a different side of Bret Baier. And if you're a fan of Fox News Special Report, you will see Bret in an entirely different light now. Uh-oh.
Bang boogie, so up jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie to beat. Skiddy-bop, shoo-bop, Scooby-Doo, that's right, America, we love you. Yeah. And we rock and roll to the summer sun. We can rock to 101 years old. I don't mean to brag, I don't mean to boast, but I like hot butter on my breakfast toast. Rock it out, baby bubba to the boogie to bang bang, the boogie to the beat. So you
he's got moves.
Everybody,
he can rap.
Walk on late, dark afternoon. Reporter stopped me for an interview. She said she's heard stories.
You're a musician. How's he doing?
Vicious on the mic and the turntables. This young reporter.
Band's pretty good. Yeah, not bad.
Could he play with your group?
Well, I don't know if we would do that specifically, but I mean, is it cringe? Yes, it is definitely cringe. But that said, he's having a good time. It's lighthearted. Yeah, it's genuine. I approve. I mean, it's a little cringe, but it's definitely positive more than negative.
Well, for equal time, if I find something with Jake Tapper that's similar to that, we'll play it here on the podcast. Okay, back to the news of the day. We'll see what's going on, and next week we'll bring you an entirely different episode. Make sure that you subscribe so it always populates for you, and you always get the latest of our podcasts. Until next time, this is Dale Carter's America.
The views expressed on Dale Carter's America are Dale's and Kurt Wheeler's. They do not necessarily reflect the views of KFKF or Steel City Media. Comments can be sent to dalecartersamerica@gmail.com. Check back for weekly episodes. Subscribe, spread the word, and give us a 5-star review. Thanks for being a part of Dale Carter's America.